started your company, you're past the startup phase. It's growing, you're ready to scale, and things are looking up. But what do you do now to get to that next level? Paid advertising. And that's why I'm excited to have Kevin Urrutia on today's episode, #1 Facebook ad agency. And I'm going to have to look. Don't knock me down for this, but check this out. Startup Weekend Bay Area, Google, Intuit, Mint, Salesforce. Just a couple of the companies he's worked with, and Shark Tank. He has grown multiple companies, and one of them here that really caught my attention, growing his home cleaning business from 0 to 3 million in 18 months. There is so much more he's going to cover. I'm just going to bring him up. I can't wait to have him on today's show. Expert Authority World, Kevin Urrutia. Every business needs a book, including yours. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com.
Hey, Mario, how's it going?
Kevin Urrutia, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. Great. Exciting. It's a good day today. It's Tuesday, so
Absolutely.
happy.
One of my favorite days of the week. But you have such an impressive background. You've grown multiple companies. How did you decide after having successful companies to say, I want to do a Facebook ads agency?
Yeah, so the reason why I started it was, I guess Mario, you were talking about it earlier, was I wanted to really meet more entrepreneurs. So I was going to meetups. I'm based out of here in New York City. So I was going to meetups. I was going to startup events. And when I was basically programming, because that's my background, I was doing a lot of these events, startup weekends, competing. And I met so many founders and I met so many friends that way. And then once I started doing my own companies, I kind of stopped going to those events because I was like, oh, I'm just like building my own thing. I'm like really focused on growing my own products and services. And then I really wanted to go back into that, like meeting people, meeting founders, and not just meeting them, but I figured, hey, I did it before for my own companies. How can I also help them? And it was kind of what Voy Media is now. I always tell people is not what I really envisioned. Right now, it's much bigger than I thought it would be. In the beginning, I really thought it was going to be like, few people, and it would be a mix of marketing plus like investing in startups. And that's kind of what I thought Voy Media was going to be. That's what Wilson, who's my partner, that's what we envisioned it. Like, hey, let's just use it as a way to meet founders and invest in startups. And then, so it's funny because I've never worked at an ad agency before, or I never worked with one when I was running my own company. So learning how to price, learning how to traditional ad model is sort of what we consider ourselves right now. But that's like, we kind of stumbled upon that because everybody was like looking for that. And myself, I was like, hey, look, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a founder. I want equity in your company and I want like shared interest, right? But a lot of them were just like, no, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to give you part of my company. So I was like, okay, well, like, how should we charge? And then we figured out like, okay, this is what everybody else is charging, percentage of ad spend and, whatever that is. So now I realize that
doing now, the percentage of ad spend?
yeah, so we do that for most, like almost 99% of the clients. There's maybe one or two where we're owning it. And that's because we realized as we were working with people that were like, okay, it's actually a good idea not to take equity because a lot of these founders have no clue what's going on. And we now don't want to be part of that business because like it makes no sense. And we're basically work with one or two partners where we've been working them for 2 years. And then they say, hey guys, I want to build a product and I know you guys are good. Okay, we're gonna say, okay, great. Now let's take equity because it makes sense. A lot of times, at least for me, and I've talked to other agency owners as well, is that like founders aren't growing as much as they want to grow. Like you probably heard like, hey, I want to go fast, but then they don't hire internally. They have product issues. And then we just can't take them to the next level.
Well, that's a good way to go about it because I know people that do it the first way you mentioned where they say, hey, we want 5-10% of the company or X amount of the sales generated each month.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take a look at the ROAS, they go, we're going to take X amount.
Percentage, yep.
Yeah, but I think it's good also. And some people just say it's a flat X amount of dollars in cash, but then there's the percentage of ad spend. because the more you're spending, the more generally you are managing. Also, there's a difference from
Yep.
running 100 ads to 1,000 across 10 different product lines, let's say. So
Yep.
is your goal now to identify those companies that are more in the startup phase, that they got to a point where they're, hey, we can see this being profitable? Or are you
Yeah.
still trying to go after a lot of the companies just to make the connections in the beginning?
No, so right now, yeah, in the beginning, it was very what you're saying before, which is like new companies. And but now, like as the agency becomes bigger, we sort of like any customer, we are now like going up scale, right? Moving companies that have more money and the ones that have a product market fit. So this is why for us, when we charge percentage of ad spend, for them it makes sense. Like a company that's making like $1 million, $2 million a month, they would probably almost never give you like, hey, give me 10% of sales. They say no, right? Like so the model of what you're saying is what a lot of new companies want to do, saying, hey, I'll pay you when you make me sales. Basically, that means, hey, I don't know if I can market my product. Can you market it for me? Right. So it's a very different type of entrepreneur, very different type of person. So for us, we don't really like to do those too much unless we are like fully in control of the funnel. And even then, it's kind of like a very rare case. Because it's just like a different type of marketing. I tell people like each agency specializes in a specific type of marketing. I think we're better at like if you have traction, you come to us because you need help with creatives, copy, and taking you to the next level. Go-to market strategy is a very different type of person. And it's just the way I think about it is a very different type of relationship with the client. And I think clients and agencies need to sort of realize what that is. That way you can expect the best. Because if a new company comes to us and they're saying, hey, I see you guys are good, but I want to work with you. We're like, hey, look, like you might want to work with a freelancer or a smaller company where that founder can actually talk to you almost every day. Where with us, it's like we're talking maybe twice a month because we're not here to like handhold you, right? We're here to make you money and then just grow your business. That's all you care about is numbers. Whereas initial companies are like, hey, what should I make fonts be? What should my colors be? I'm like, okay, we're not that type of agency.
Yeah, and that's good because there's nothing wrong with either
Yeah.
way. It's just being clear on it because there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who want that hand holding and
Yep.
they might find someone who doesn't have it and they just get the wrong impression. And conversely, there's companies that only go on the numbers that they don't even tell people about the hand holding because
Yeah.
sometimes they need it, sometimes they don't. But I totally get where you're coming from with the perspective of we're not going to teach you ads. We're not going to train you on how to do what we're doing every step of the way. And that's the same thing with marketing in general, graphic design,
Yeah.
websites, whatever. It's like, well, what are you doing this for? I mean, you don't ask the doctor. He doesn't
Yeah.
teach you what he's doing every step of the way. It's you have a problem. Do you want it fixed? Great. Here's the date. And
Yeah.
that's fantastic. You don't, unless you're in that training, mentee, mentor, consulting relationship or coaching, there's no reason for it. You say, hey, here's what we're looking for. So, how do you identify the company? Do you do it based on dollar amount? They're doing 1 to 2 million a year, 5 million, 10, 20, or can you just tell by the person that you don't care about that as much as you can just tell that this person's got 961,000 questions when you said, where's your
Yeah.
logo?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
identify them?
It's it's that's a good question. It's a
You
mix of
know
like
that's true
everything.
though,
Right?
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You've
So
said, "Hey,
true.
so you're considering
Yeah.
ads," and they ask 900 things, and you're like, "I don't
Yeah.
even know what your product is or website. What are we selling here?"
Yeah. I tell people it's already a red flag when like they're saying, hey, let's get on a call, but like I need you to sign like 3 NDAs. I was like, all right, like you probably think your idea is the best idea in the world, and somehow I'm gonna steal it, right? Usually, like the best founders with like millions of dollars of revenue are just like, hey, here's what I'm building. What can you do? It's usually brand new founders that make you sign it, and then all right, that's already one check mark in the red flags, right? So, but really, kind of what you said, it's usually like some signs that you have product market fit are if you're talking to a digital marketing manager of the company, very obvious. That means that they themselves, the founders, have been able to step out of that role and identify that they need help. So talking to a digital marketing manager really helps. But again, we work with a lot of founders that sort of come to us saying, hey, I have a digital marketing team and they can't scale.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've had that happen before, saying, hey, look, like my team can't scale and I've told them already and I'm looking for an agency. But again, we work with a lot of companies like that because that makes sense to us.
Let's
But
touch
again, it
on that
goes,
for a second
yeah,
because that's a unique situation. And
Yeah.
I've encountered it too, because I've been helping people with business book publishing for some time, and they're like, "Oh, I've already written stuff. I've done this, that." Yeah.
Yeah.
They've never done a book though. They've
Yeah.
done an article here or there, and it's like, okay, you have 951,000 articles. You never thought to throw a cover. Okay, I'll behave, but my
Yeah.
the point is, what do you think about the people that have the marketing team, or they just have that? Now, it sounds like you're running into the people that have the common sense to say, what we're doing isn't working. We need your help.
Yep.
I'm sure you've also run into the people who are like, oh, we're already doing, I mean, you don't even get half a
Yeah.
sentence out and they're like, oh, we've tried that. We're doing this, that. And you can just tell they're shut off. Do you think it's good that they have a team and they're at a point? Do you think they maybe got them from A to B, but now they're going from B to C? Or do you think they just put people in place for the sake of people putting people in place?
Yeah, I think it's both of like anything. It's like even for our company or for my previous company, sometimes you get so busy that you just hire people just because like, hey, look, I'm going to bring somebody because I need a body to do some work, right? It's like someone's got to upload ads, someone's got to do something. And then you realize like I mean, you probably heard it, fire fast and hire slowly,
Yeah.
but firing fast is so hard. It's like, it's not as easy as people say. It's like you develop relationships with people, you talk to them, they're kind of a cool person. And it's like, maybe they'll get better. Maybe if I switch their roles, it's like, it's really hard. And so basically what happens I see is that like, they probably hired the wrong person. And now they're just like, hey, look, I'm looking for experts to come in and help. So that's kind of what I'm seeing for a lot of people. And sometimes they're just like, the people, it's interesting because I can see when you hire like a marketing manager at a company, how like during an interview they sound great, because we do it too when we hire people to our agency. Like, oh wow, this person's so great, and then we're just like, whoa, this person doesn't know anything. like, what? Because in the interview they knew. So I can see why like hiring is so hard. Like the way I think about it, at least for me, it's like, and for me, it's interesting learning hiring in the marketing space because I came from a computer science background. In computer science, whenever I worked at Mint or Intuit, we had to do a like logical test. We had to do problem solving tests. Like you don't even get an interview unless like you knew how to solve algorithms. So like you knew what something was going on in your brain. Where for like when I was doing interviews for like marketing, I'm like they're like, oh, I can't, like it was just talking. Like, hey, like how do you think about marketing? What's sales funnels? I'm like, okay, it looks like but then talking and implementing are very two different things, and strategy are very different. So
I remember
that's something
hearing
that
a story about someone that put out what was it? A coder application, the resume in Leet speak, and then had a QR code at the bottom. And I was like, that's freaking genius, because unless you've weeded out everyone who doesn't know. And even then, that's just the starting point. I'm like, that's killer. Yeah. I got to do something like that. I don't need anyone like that right now, but I just want to do it.
And the thing too, like, at least for me, so like we've tried to implement tests for like digital marketing managers, and a lot of them are just like, no, I don't do this. Where I think it's interesting because for coders, we're kind of like trained that like you're gonna do this at an interview. So it's like the prerequisite is already there. Whereas like introducing this to like people that haven't had it, it's like, why do you need this? I'm good enough, right? So it's like that mentality is like, all right, like we're gonna battle here. Where for coders, like I knew that like I had to like study coding interviews books, and that's like a whole section on Amazon on how to pass that coding interview, right? So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think there's some people who are good at the front end. They get good at saying the right stuff, wearing the right thing. They get good at like here, but when it comes down to it, like we have a massive problem. It's Friday at 3:30, and this needs to be fixed before we leave for the weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a whole different mindset.
And that's exactly what it is. It's about mindset. A lot of people, we've hired people where they're great talkers, and then we see them execute and we're just like, whoa, like where's your logic? Like at least for ad stuff, right? It's, at least for me, it's like for me, it's sometimes like, it's so obvious. I'm like, hey, like you spent $500, your CPA was supposed to be 50. You haven't made any sales. So shouldn't you pause the ads? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, it's kind of obvious. Like, so for me, I'm like, where are we going wrong here? What's going on? So but again, like that's the way I think about it. So going back to what we said before with like companies, I feel like everybody makes hiring mistakes. They come to us because we want to work with a team. And again, I think a lot of thing too is like going back to the way we pay and the way agencies charge. It's in the best interest of the company to say, hey, look, if I pay this company, I'm only going to pay them when they make me results. And going back to ad spend, we're only going to increase your ad spend when we're making you money, because you'll tell us, hey guys, spend more money. So for them, it's a very different incentive than maybe an employee that just gets a salary that just says, hey, yep, no matter what happens, you're still going to get paid.
Yeah, and that's a great differentiation because I think every business wants to advertise, but when they're saying stuff like sign the 15 NDAs before I tell you anything,
Yeah.
like, okay, cool, maybe
Yeah.
you do. I really want to make a joke because that's my personality. It's I was gonna make some a joke about some variation of a soup spoon, but at the same time, I love entrepreneurship and
Yeah.
creativity, and I want to honor whatever anyone created because I know what it's like to start off. Um, but at the same token, it's like I think they're just scared to begin with. It's like
Yep.
everything. Like, don't tell them what microphone. In my case, don't tell them what
Yeah.
microphone I'm using. Don't tell them how to print the book. You know, when you're going
Yeah.
to publish it, it's like it doesn't matter if you think that's your secret. You have a problem.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Exactly. I think so too. And that's exact. So I know that feeling too, because I used to think like that. Like if I tell like my maid company, I'm like, oh my God, if I tell people what I'm doing to get bookings, they're gonna copy me. Then you realize that like out of
No one's
let's
willing to
no
do it.
one's no
You
one's
could
gonna
put the
do
whole
it.
thing out in a 17-step process. Most people won't do it.
Most people won't do it. And the reason why is because people have their own ideas and they want to build what they want. They don't want to build what you want. Your idea might sound cool for like a minute. And then like next day you're just like, I totally forgot what Kevin said. Like, cause like his idea isn't my idea. And that's why I guess it goes with the movie Inception, right? It's like you really love your own ideas. And that's why it's so hard to convince somebody, because we're humans. We're selfish. We would say, I want to build my own company with my idea because I think my idea is the best. Going back to why you want to sign an NDA, because you think your idea is the best. But like you probably know, Mario, as you sort of have done more companies, you realize it's not the idea. It's kind of like everything around that idea, like the people, the traction, how you market, how you think about that. Because going back to like ideas in general, like Google, for example, everybody knows Google, everybody knows Facebook. Those weren't the first search engine. It wasn't the first like social network. But so that's an idea. But Mark and whatever the Larry and Sergey, the Google guys, had a different version of that idea. And that's sort of what I tell people all the time. It's your implementation of the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously those companies are big companies. But another way I think about it for other people is I go down the street here in New York City, there's 20 coffee shops. Is coffee shops the idea, but you still see 20 companies still existing
The
because
variation of it.
the variations of that. And that's what your idea is, a variation of the idea. And what this idea tells you, like a coffee shop, it tells you that there's demand. So people want it. That's a good thing. You don't want to come up with an idea that nobody's ever heard about, because that means you're going to have to educate the market, and that's super expensive.
Yeah, and I'll also say the goals in the heart too. You could have company A doing nefarious things, and they're still a successful dollar wise, but you could have a company that has more, like Tom's Shoes. We don't want to just be a successful company. We're also going to give back. There's people who just flat out, they're not the right type of person and they don't want to do it. Also, the goals. Your goal might just to be having one local restaurant. That's a great goal. I have clients that are like that.
Yep.
And I also know and have people who they want more, let's just say. So it's not one's right or one's wrong. I mean, the food in question doesn't even come into matter, even though they're two different things. But you know what I mean? What's the goal with it? And I think
that's so important.
Everyone wants to advertise and everything. But where would you say they should start, regardless of the business, regardless of the industry? Where should you say someone start if they're on the tipping point of, I want to run ads, but I'm kind of hesitant about it? How do we get them past that hesitation, in your words?
Yeah. So if we're to do like, I would think about two things here. Like I love advertising, like Facebook ads is what we do, but I love like SEO even more. I think any business should be thinking about SEO. It's probably my favorite source of traffic for sustainable business. The reason why I like SEO, because when you're building a product or service, you need to be thinking about what customers are searching for. Going back to what I said before, like for us, we ran the Maid company, Maid Sailors. I always run to rank for. I saw that Cleaning Services NYC had about 2,000 search terms a month for New York only. So I said, hey, there's about 2,000 customers that I can get a month that's going to leave my cleaning company. And for me, that showed me that this idea or this thing I'm building has traction, or there's demand for. And again, the reason why I like SEO too is because it does take time in the beginning, But again, as you sort of build links, as you get content, that's sort of a compounding effect. You rank easier as the years go by. You're 1, 2, and 3. You realize that like you're getting all these customers, quote unquote, for free, and not for free, obviously, as SEO costs money, but the customer acquisition cost isn't increasing as much as something like a Facebook or a Google. That's how I think about it. And plus, SEO is a longer term, so I would say plan for at least 6 months of nothingness, and then all of a sudden, whoop, I got traffic, right? And then for SEO, for Google and Facebook ads, I would say to consider that if you have some money and you want to get customers and sales. So that's kind of like a hit of dopamine. It's like, all right, I got a customer, and and then you keep going, and it works, right? It's like, and of course, you can make a big business through ads, right? Like, but the way I would think about it is there's 2 channels. So if you have a product, let's say a product kind of like shoes, for example, Tom's, I think Google Shopping ads is probably one of your best bets to get started. And the reason why is because, like I said, people are searching for shoes, red shoes, blue shoes. You want to show up there, and that's a very buying intent keyword. So at least you have a shot at getting a customer. Whereas, let's say you have a service, and again, let's say you're a brand new product or you have a little bit less money, then I would say maybe use Facebook, because Facebook is very discovery based. You still are targeting people that like shoes, or even now with the new iOS update, it's much harder. But now you really need to think about it. It's like more the content and creative. So if you don't have too much content or creative, such as videos or images, then Facebook's gonna be much harder for you, because your stuff is not gonna look good. So then go back to Google, where it's just a text base. So, add a keyword and start advertising.
Yeah, that would be an advantage of Google. You just have a link and it goes straight to your site.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah. So Facebook is like a little bit harder. But mostly I tell people now, founders,
it's a whole different opportunity also.
Yep. Yeah. Different opportunity.
If you're going, I want one over the other, regardless of where you fall, that's a whole different marketplace you're just missing.
Yeah. It's 2 completely different channels, and it just depends on what you want to start with first. If you have a lot of content, for example, like you're advertising socially. So for example, a lot of brands that we work with have never done Facebook ads, but they have a really big IG presence, because that's sort of like organic growth. So we can use a lot of that content for Facebook ads, because it's the same format that Facebook uses, Instagram uses. So that's the way you would want to think about it. And a lot of content these days is very simple to make. Just take your phone out and record yourself doing something. So that's some of the best stuff that we've seen, is just tell your friends to record doing something with your product. So
yeah, and also for the ads, like you're saying, the creative, the artwork, for anyone that's listening, when you see the ad, don't think that it's just the pictures at random and it's not a carefully crafted thumbnail or anything. There's so many different apps now to just create artwork, even from a decade ago, let alone 2 decades ago, that you would need some serious graphic design knowledge to even pull that off. And I see stuff all the time. It's like there's 15 different things you can do on your phone while you're riding your bike, and it's like, oh yeah, I started a campaign.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
It's so simple now. Yeah. And the thing too, I tell people all the time, like, just use your IG stories editor. Like, that's so good. There's so many filters on there, so many fonts. Like, some of the best ads, I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, we have a designer. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't know why we're using like InDesign anymore. Like, just use like the video editor, because you're paying thousands of dollars for the software that like, it doesn't work as well as like the native stuff. Like even the TikTok ads,
Facebook, like with the Facebook and Instagram Creator Studio.
Yeah.
What people don't realize is, if you can wrap your head around, the company's not trying to hurt you, they're trying to help you, because the more they help you, the more you stay on them and the more they make. Instead of needing 13 third-party softwares. I mean, look what they did with Snapchat and what's the other one? TikTok. Like, oh,
TikTok,
there's someone new company. Let's try and buy them. Oh, they said no. Great. Hey, coders, guess what your job is this month? 5 weeks later, guess what we're rolling out?
Stories.
They want you to stay on the platforms.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that it's now natively, only took like 8 years, but that's, they want us on their platform versus the other guy. Now I'm going to shut my mouth. I was going to say something about they can cut out the other things they're doing. But the fact is, do you know today's numbers? Because I looked recently, I'm sure it's higher. How many people are on Facebook now?
Oh, like, I mean, over 1 billion, right? Over 1 billion now. I don't remember.
That's a whole lot of people.
Yeah. 1 billion customers. And like, I think like out to the US is like some of their biggest growth. So if you have a company or product, like, I think it's very interesting going back to like products and ideas, like Facebook is great in the US, but international growth for your company is probably something that most people don't really think about. But Facebook has grown year over year internationally, not the US anymore. Absolutely. Because US is obviously a lot of people. and you have a big market. But if your company becomes somewhat big and successful, you realize that you need to grow internationally. Like for example, Uber, Facebook. Maybe Uber's a better example for people. Uber started in the U.S. and almost grew so fast that like every country copied them. And what did Uber have to do? They basically had to buy them all out because the business model wasn't hard. It was just like, hey, an app with a taxi. But then Uber wanted to be everywhere. So again, that's another opportunity for entrepreneurs. Look at a company in the US, see what's hot. Be like, oh, it's not in Argentina. Great, let me go start in Argentina then, right? So you have a company. I mean, you probably know, Mario. There was a company that just did that. I forget what it's called. That literally just took USA companies and expanded them in South America and Europe. And basically, what happened, like the main company that the US started, they would buy them. Literally, that was their whole like business model. They made tons of money. Yeah.
I mean, that's the great thing. I love entrepreneurship because it's kind of like the Wild West. It's like there's a lot less rules than in a job, but at the same point, you still have to serve the market. If you're just doing stuff for yourself and you're not adding value, no matter what the business is, it's not going to work.
Yep.
That's why I love the ads, because I know more people than not that have great businesses, great hearts. They want to grow. They just don't know what to do next.
Yep. Yeah.
So
And
I think
Facebook
the
ads made it
like
great.
you're talking about is a good way to do it. So would you say for someone that wants to do them, they should be focusing more on the images or the creative? What's more important to you? The text
So for me,
or the artwork?
I'd say the most important part is going to be the text, and that's going to be the text on the image ads or the video ads. So, and again, when I say text, I mean just really make it explicit about what you're selling or what your product does. Like, for example, we sell Facebook ads. We literally say like, hey, we'll help you scale with Facebook ads. Just be very direct. I think a lot of people try to get too clever and cute, like scale to the moon. Okay, what does that mean? Like, okay, like what does that mean? Like, yeah. Yeah. You see, like people try to get too like, this is the way I think about it. Creative. Yeah. This is the way I think about it. I say like a lot of times entrepreneurs get great ideas from a bunch of these VC funded startups. They raise tens of millions of dollars and then they look at those ads. For example, Nike. Like you're not going to be Nike that can use one line, and all of a sudden you're going to sell a shoe for $400. That's like 100 years of like experience. They're also paying celebrities billions of dollars. I say if you're a new entrepreneur, go look at the non-VC funded startups that actually have to make money online to survive and pay their employees, because for a fact they're hiring people that are going to be performance focused, either working with an agency that's performance focused, and that they're looking to do to be profitable for their company. So look for those small businesses that are around 2 or 3 years that actually are continuing to grow with paid and organic because they're doing something right, versus VC funded companies that have great for them that they raise money. Of course, I'm not saying it's bad, but they have a very different mindset, very different runway than you might have. Yeah, and business model. Yep.
I've used the analogy for the Walmart. If you're trying to compete like Walmart, well, you better have $1 billion in sales, 1 million employees, and be buying stuff in bulk. Oh, well, I'll just lower the price of everything like Walmart did.
Yeah.
You don't have the margins. You have a 15% margin and you lowered the cost 20%.
Yeah.
You're going to lose money the more you sell. The more you sell, the more you lose. You have to, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the one thing I love about, when we running our ads. Let's say you're doing $100 a day, $1,000 a day, whatever the case is, like the example of the gentleman who didn't look at it. Our rule is like after 24, at most 48 hours, you either tweak it or bail on it.
Yep.
You don't run it for a week and go through the whole budget if no one's clicking on it. The conversions don't go through or anything. So for direct response marketing, you said for $1 million, you have 7 days to sell out of this online. You're not going to wait 5 or 6 days to see if the ad's performing. You can get real-time statistics with it. I believe it is real-time now. At the very least, you can see the today's numbers and yesterday's numbers.
At least you'll see the clicks in your Google Analytics.
Campaign to roll out in the newspaper.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so important for media buyers, so important for entrepreneurs. Is like, that's why, like, going back to what people say, Facebook ads, like people hate them, but they're so important for small businesses because it just helps them grow. And yes, I think Facebook ads will still be there. I think you're just going to be a little bit tougher. And so for me, it's like the way I think about it, it's good and bad. It means that you're gonna have to actually have a great product, because obviously you probably see, Mario, like a lot of products the last year or two are just kind of like, what the hell are you selling? Like, is it actually good? Right. Like, and it's like another Me Too product. So now I think it's going to be help with like true innovation. And that is sort of what entrepreneurs like are now. So I think about two ways. Last 2-3 years, great. It means a lot of people got exposed to entrepreneurship. Oh crap, I can make money online. Oh, that's great. But now it's like, oh wait, now I can't make money that easily. So let me actually innovate and think about new ideas and products. So that's my hopeful view of thinking, because that's kind of reminds me of like back in the day when software first came out. I was like, whoa, what's this, all this new software, the World Wide Web? Like, who created this thing, right? That was an innovation, right? Where e-commerce right now, you've probably seen it, it's kind of like almost the same product with like a different label. And it's like, which one do you buy now? It's kind of like mattresses, like the beds. Like when Casper first came out, true innovation. Now it's like, wait, there's like 20, 30 mattresses. Like, what's the difference now? So,
Yeah, and also who sticks through? It's like great. Same thing with
yeah,
podcasting. Hey, you got a new show? Great, excited, fantastic.
yeah,
Congrats. Seriously, I hope it works out well for you. But it's like give it 6 months or a year and see if they're still around. I know people who have told me candidly, other authors, speakers, CEOs, and they're like, yeah, I usually wait to see if they have 50, 100, 150
yeah,
plus episodes to even consider them. And then
yeah,
everyone else is going, I just started a show. How do I get Oprah on it?
yeah.
Do a second one. Do
Yeah,
a third
I've heard
one.
that too. Yeah, I heard that. I mean, I've had my podcast since 2 years ago now, and it's like just consistency. And yeah, it's like when I was first starting out, like no, I could get on no one's podcast. So I'm like, hey, look, I have like over 100 episodes now. Like I have over 400 reviews on iTunes, and it's like consistency is sort of what matters in like not just podcasts, but you probably know Mario, just any day life, business, like learn something, read something. It's sort of what drives you and sort of what gets you to point A to B. It's just being consistent and not giving up, because like anything, it's easy to give up. And podcasting is one that I see a lot of people just give up because the views are like it. I don't know why people think podcasting is easy to start, but it's really hard to be consistent and to get listeners. So it's really tough.
Yeah, and I would even say not just with podcasting, but you can screw up upwards of 90% of whatever it is. But the fact that you're still going, people give you credit, and all it takes is one time of getting it right, and now you're on a whole another track. Business especially. Oh, you did it bad for the first 10 years, but year 11, watch out.
And it's so funny because I always tell people,
someone,
yeah,
because life is long.
And it's so funny I say that because I always tell people all the time, like, you just need to get lucky once. That's it. Like, I feel like once you get lucky once, like everything is good. And it's everything else can be like, oh, okay, like everything else is a learning experience. So, and yeah. And that's, it's so funny. I think about that too. I tell people all the time, you just need to get lucky once. Like, even for me with my business, like I was doing it since I was like 18. And then I started my first, like, I always tell people like Maid Sailors, like the cleaning company. I always tell people that's like my first real business. But before then I was just like doing stuff, and I was just like building companies, building ideas
for a hot minute. Cause there's no way I didn't want to screw it up. But I'm looking at, you have so many different things you've done successfully, but take us on a quick journey of growing home cleaning business from 0 to 3 million in 18 months. How the heck did you pull that off in a cleaning company?
Yeah.
What
so
was the biggest pivot milestone? What was the secret to that?
So I guess the biggest secret to that was SEO. Like really when I started doing that was, I think 2015, 2016. At that time I just learned SEO because I was working at Zaarly, a startup. And the reason why I learned SEO was because I saw that Zaarly, again, we raised all this money, but we had no customers. So I was like, at the time I was an engineer. I was like, hey, like I'm working on programming stuff, but like I was kind of doing some marketing things because I was part of the marketing team too. So I got into SEO and I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense now. I know now we're not getting customers because we're talking about something that I think engineers make and like people make is like, they have like their own like vernacular for words. I'm just like, but people don't describe it like that. I'm like, why are we calling it like this weird way? But like people call it like maid service. I'm like, but we're saying like another word, right? So anyways, I learned about SEO, and then that's when I got into learning more about home cleaning. The reason why we did home cleaning was because when I was working at Zaarly, that sort of vertical was very popular for us. And I saw some of the issues that people were having where like you had a great maid, you couldn't bring her back because she was only one person, and it was like her own business. It was like a lot of freelancers, right? Kind of like you can't scale. So I was like, oh, what if I make it like a maid company of all these great maids? I was like, what if I'm like a Uber for maid cleaning? That's really what I used to call it, by the way. Uber for
Oh,
maid cleaning. Yeah,
I
so
see what you did.
yeah. So I took all these like ideas and I was like, and then at the time I was living in California. So I was like, I'm gonna do New York City because then I saw the search volume. I was like, oh, New York City has a lot of search volume,
When
which
you
makes sense.
said that and you said,
Yeah.
I saw there was a search for 2000 in this niche, I was like, I think he leveraged this because what most people don't realize, and
Yeah.
I want to point out, most people go, this is only 2000. I'm looking for 5, 10, 15,
Yeah.
30. But the reality, if you get away from the computers, because I think with all the lights and all this trash, it's
Yeah.
not real trash. I'm actually very thankful for it. But you lose touch with reality. And it's like, well, unless I'm talking to 900,000 people, it's like, you know how
Yeah.
big of a room that would be?
Yeah.
2,000 people, if you could convert even half of those, that's 1,000 clients. Could
Yep.
you handle 1,000 people, of which I would say, just guessing, let's just say 50% of those, so that's 500
Yeah.
on monthly recurring.
Yep, exactly. And then cleaning is recurring. And so it's like, that's a lot of stuff. Exactly what you said. I was like, this is fine. Like 500 customers, they each pay me 150 each. I was like, this is a pretty good business. I was like, okay, I don't need that much. And that's sort of what I thought because
That's a
for me,
very
at least,
high
yeah,
MRR.
yeah. So we did a lot of money for that cleaning company because of like that same, and that's why for me, I was like, oh, wow, people probably don't see this. People, I would have never thought about it unless I was working at Zarly, which is kind of like just lucky because I was working there. And I was like, oh wow, like I never knew cleaning companies would charge so much. And that's kind of where I got that insight, right? It's like I tell people all the time, you just get insights from anywhere. Like that's what I was just like, oh, I just like, oh, pretty interesting.
So
So
did you exit from that completely to start Voy, or do you still have it going and it's just taking care of itself?
yeah, so I sold it completely. So basically, at its peak, for maid sailors, we were in New York City. So we bought out a company in Chicago. We bought another company in Boston, and we were in New Jersey. And then we also acquired three other cleaning companies in New York City. And the reason why I did that was because going back to SEO, I love SEO. I said, hey, these companies are like on page two. I know I'm good at SEO. I'm going to buy those page two companies and move them to page one. That way I can control the full homepage of like when people search for like maid service or home cleaning. Because it's funny because people will call our companies and it's like we see their phone just ring, 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 ring. And
Now, did you rebrand
initially,
them all to the same
yeah,
company?
no, all rebranded to different companies. So I did like, Baby Gap, like just different companies, all owned by the same sort of parent company, which is my company.
Okay.
Because
But
that's
you
where I
didn't
saw
leave them
clothing.
at the as the sole proprietor or smaller company names. You kept them all under your umbrella.
All under an umbrella, but like one was called like Maid Sailors, the other one called like Planet Maids, just different maid names. That way people didn't know it was like the same. But of course, in the footer, you have like your legal name. It's like, hey, by the way, we're all the
How
same
many
company.
subsidiaries did you have?
We before I sold it, we had maybe 4 or 5.
Okay.
And then basically what we did was like once we were having ranking, we would also rank them in other cities that we were in already. And then let's say we were in Chicago and we had like Chicago, we would just funnel the leads to like my main business. So it was a little tough because um each business had its own like sort of software. So like it wasn't pulled into like one big like system of like, hey, here are all the cleanings. It was like you had a cleanings for A, cleaning for company B, and it was like we had the same pool of maids, and then the maids would be like get a job from cleaning company A and company B, and then they'll be like, what's like, so a little confusing there, but we wanted to make it work, and we did it. So that's how we thought about it.
That's fantastic. So I've heard of
Yeah.
split testing like copy and ads, but it sounds
Yeah.
like you split tested the business and just went with whatever was working more because maybe this company's ranking higher for these search terms. Correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong in this city, but we'll rename it here and we'll get the better volume. Is that what
Yeah,
you were
it's
doing?
exactly what we did. And again, the thing too is like we tested pricing. We just raised the pricing because like, hey, like, can we charge more? Right? Say, hey, look, like, so at its peak, I think right now the companies are bought out, so everybody's kind of the same price. But before we categorize ourselves like high price, medium price, and lower price, and then just sort of at least get every part of the market. That was our initial idea.
Same thing with the hotel chains. Like a
Yep.
lot of people don't realize, but there's only a few chains now.
Yeah.
And if you go to the one I'm thinking of, Marriott, you go on
Marriott.
their
Yeah.
site, they're just there's like 30 of them, and it's top, top
Yeah.
luxury, top medium, higher, higher, lower, lower. There's like 5 or 6, 7 different levels.
Yeah, and that's exactly like I saw a lot of companies do that, and I tell people all the time like this is a very common business practice that I just don't see people do that much. Like hotels do it all the time, clothing companies do it all the time. I think it's very rare for companies not to do this. It just make for me it made sense. I was like, at least for me with SEO, like I know that the first three spots get all the clicks, so why am I not ranking for the first three spots? Like, yeah, so that's what I thought, and
Yeah,
that's kind
and
of
I'm
like,
glad you brought
yeah,
up that SEO because even with the Facebook ads,
yeah,
you could say, well, what about the copy? What about the headline? What about the text? What about this? But it's like if you never even did a search, like who are you targeting?
yep.
What's the search volume? What words are going to play the best? Because these might respond well with people, but if you're doing hardcore ads, which ones are getting the highest volume?
Yeah. And that's and that thing, it goes back to what we said, like that's why SEO is so important to Facebook ads too, because you should go and see what people are running for that keyword or like the main, what people call head term, right? And there's a lot of tools out there like Ahrefs, you probably heard of it,
Mm-hmm.
that will, you can input a competitor, let's say like apple.com, and you could see all the ads that they ran before. So if you want to, let's say potentially you want to do an iPod competitor, look at all the iPad ads that Apple's run and see how they're describing their product, potentially use that on Facebook or Google as well. So I think going at least for me with marketing and anything in general, I say like the biggest thing I say is like I love looking at competitors. I love using spy tools to see what people have done before. That way I can learn. I tell people all the time, like, yeah, go research. Like there's for direct response, like you probably know, it's like you literally are studying like letters from 20 years ago and to see like what copy can I steal or like, model for my own version because like this has worked before. So I want to use it for my version too.
Now, what about let's give the audience one super bonus that they might not know about on Facebook, um, that you don't need any super tools for. And I'm trying
Yeah.
to tell you without saying the answer. Do you know what I'm getting at?
The ad library.
There you go.
Yeah, the
Awesome.
Facebook ad, yeah, the Facebook ad library is really great. I think recently Facebook made it a lot better. So if people go to it, like obviously you can use it to spy on, a Facebook page and see what ads they run. But I think I'm not sure if people know this too, is you can actually just put in a keyword and it'll show you all the ads that contain that keyword. And that's another way. For example, we're doing research for like a RPG game. We just type in RPG game or RPG download or RPG mobile, and you'll see all like the ads for that sort of genre. And you can do this like your niche. Let's say you're doing like fitness tea, type in fit tea and see what companies are running.
Yeah, I was shocked when they came out with that
Yeah.
because I mean it was a secret decoder ring, and I normally don't do this stuff, but maybe I feel like Joe Rogan here having it here. It's facebook.com/ad library, but it will redirect you to some
Yeah.
other
It's like,
link. I'll make sure it's in the show notes there. But this is why I have like 400,000 monitors. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool thing. That was so cool. You knew what I was saying. I was like, how do I tell him without typing in the chat?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think it's
so
probably like,
what I'm
it was
hearing a
very
lot of
disruptive.
is do competitive analysis before you start just even creating the ad, let alone spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah, and again, going back to what I said, if you're doing Facebook ads and you're using the ad library, go to competitor. One thing that you'll realize, similar to what you said, Mario, is like if an ad's working, you'll probably keep it running, right? And if it isn't working, you'll kill it. So the way I like to think about it is find competitors that have been running ads for 2-3 months. If they're running for 2-3 months, it'll say like in the library, it'll say like February, like that's when it started. If they're still running it in February and it's in August, okay, this thing is probably
It's probably
working. So
working.
yeah, let me go copy that ad. I told my designers, okay, go. We're gonna download this ad, copy it, and replace it with our stuff, and we're gonna run it and see why they're running it for so long.
Yeah, and scale, bail, and tweak it. Don't run
Yeah,
stuff for a week or two if it's not performing. Do
yeah.
you ever go past a day or two? I want to ask you that.
We typically do at least 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
Again, it depends on how much budget is behind that. So if we're doing like, let's say your CPA is 30, we're gonna run it for 150 a day for 3 to 5 days max, unless it's like a promo, like let's say like July 4th, and we have like $1,000 budget on that. Within a few hours, we'll kill it because we say, hey, look, this July 4th promo flopped. We're not gonna run it like the next day. It's no more
Yeah.
July 4th. So but again, it's with running ads and campaigns, everybody's slightly different, and that's kind of like what the science behind Facebook ads is. Like everybody's got their own formulas, everybody's got their own intuition, and that's how you should think about it too. Like the way your business runs, you might know that, hey, like it's weird that at 6 o'clock we're not getting any sales. We know it's like the best time for us. Where another business, it's like, okay, yeah, 6 o'clock, we normally don't get sales. So this is why sometimes I tell people like reading stuff online is sometimes not helpful because, everybody posts online their best results. Oh my
Oh
God, I'm
God.
getting you like,
My
yeah,
favorite was back in the day, and I still see it and I still chuckle when email marketing really took off like 100 years ago. It's like, what is the best day to send an email?
yeah, God,
Tuesday. What is the best day to send an email?
yeah,
Tuesday. Well, guess what?
yeah,
When everyone sees this after 3 to 6 to 9 months, and you get 47 emails on Tuesday, guess which one
yeah,
doesn't stand out anymore?
yep,
So send it Wednesday.
yeah. And what you're saying is sort of like you're so right. And I think the way I think about it too, it's like if someone's this is the way I think, and maybe it's because like an SEO, someone taught me this, is like if everybody's talking about it and saying it, that tactic or method probably doesn't work anymore because the best tactics are not getting revealed out. And the way I think about it is, at least for Facebook, right? The guys that grew Facebook, they're like a growth team. Those guys are like have never written one thing about how they grew Facebook because they probably are so ironclad NDA that Facebook's like, you discuss how we grew, who do you think is going to copy them? Snapchat, TikTok, like. So I always tell people it's funny when like people put this stuff online, and I'm like, if it was really working well, trust me, you wouldn't tell people because you're going to make all the money you can until it doesn't.
Yeah, and I was a little irritated when they stopped that,
Yeah.
especially with the business pages where it was
Yep.
like there was the module. It's like invite all your friends. Well,
Yeah.
you could invite hundreds and hundreds of people, and now it's like maybe 50 a day.
50. Yeah. 50
They're
a
like, oh,
day.
we
And
don't want
like,
you
yeah.
spamming people. Look, I just gave you 4,000 people. Give me 100 bonus for this
Yeah.
event that we're putting on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Trust me.
it's
Facebook
interesting
is
because
like,
they shifted from tell everyone, tell everyone, tell everyone to are you talking to people again? We already got
yeah.
all your friends.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's like
interesting.
growth at all costs until like, wait, never mind. Like we don't want to be doing that anymore. Like same thing with like the social graph, like the API for developers to like, hey,
Hmm.
developers connect all your friends, and they're like, actually, like people were building apps to essentially like take people off Facebook. It's like actually don't use our graph. It's actually our data, so you can't use it anymore. So it's like
Yeah,
it's. I
I
tell people all the time,
remember
this
when
is
they
why.
launched it and it was like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And I started thinking of ways I could help my clients. And then it was like, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Now it's
Nope.
privacy. You can't hook into this. You can't hook into that. I'm like, what do
Yeah,
you
I think it's
offer
interesting.
anymore?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because like this whole privacy thing is interesting for Facebook, as in like its growth. Obviously people are like, oh my god, Facebook wants to fight privacy, or like they gone to Congress and all that stuff. For them, it's kind of like any new social media network is essentially getting handicapped now because basically they can't use the growth tactics that Facebook used. Hey, download your whole contact and email them and spam them. Basically, they might
Oh,
block that
yeah.
now. And for Facebook, it's great because now it's gonna be a very different growth. And I mean, I'm not sure if people have heard the story, but Facebook buys out a lot of these like apps, like these like sort of like VPN apps.
Hmm.
And what they do is they then spy on the traffic, and then they see which apps are getting a lot of traffic. And that's how they figured out Instagram was growing. That's how they bought them out, because obviously a company like Facebook doesn't have that data, but they saw in their network that they were saying this company is getting so much traffic. It's like Facebook like, whoa, it's like the growth is crazy. And then that's how they found him. The app was called Unvalo. And
That
Facebook
is,
buys out all these like random companies that you don't know, but behind the scenes, they're mining all the data and seeing what's happening.
so
And
they don't want
so,
us taking their data, but at the
yeah,
same time,
yeah,
they don't have access to other. That's
yeah.
props for the creativity. That's kind of
That's very creative. And I was like, whoa. I was like, that's so smart because like, yeah, VPNs, they see all the data. So then Facebook's like seeing what apps are getting traffic, and that's how they're figuring out like what to buy. I mean, I don't think they can do that anymore because obviously it got discovered, and like it's sort of like all these
see.
all
And what
these
I'm
big,
hearing
yeah.
there is not just whether you should or shouldn't, but if something is in your way in business, what's
Yeah.
another creative way? Like you're saying, like we gave everyone the ad library.
Yeah.
Whether you want to copy it or not, use it for inspiration or not, ignore it or not, it's like, how can you tell? How can you just look behind the scenes to see the real answers and just don't always go for the shiny objects? Because,
Yeah.
like you're saying, like email marketing, you want to know the best day of the week to send an email? when it's the best day for your audience. And I don't know why people think only one day a week is, oh, I have a monthly
Yeah.
newsletter. Like, what is it, 2002?
Yeah. People
Like,
read all the stuff. People read all the time. Like
you got to be more
people read
aggressive
emails all
than
the time.
that.
Yeah. I do. I tell people like you gotta send email at least maybe daily if possible. If a content's interesting, then you're gonna read it. And I think people forget about that. Like your content needs to be interesting. Like you go to Facebook every day because it's interesting. You go to Instagram every day because it's interesting. Same thing with a newsletter. Like
I don't want
I
to
read
overdo
emails.
it and annoy them. Then you know subconsciously you're not putting out good enough stuff, because the
Yeah.
reality is, when I write my books, I make them as good as I possibly can and give everything. And same with the show. I put
Yep.
so much into it. Whether you like me or like the guest or whatever, you're never going to accuse me of like holding back and not delivering. You
Yep.
might not like me. You might not like the guest. That's fine. Whatever. But it was well produced and I gave it my all. Same thing
Yeah.
with the books and everything. It's like it might be for you, it might not. But I'm never going to get accused of, well, he was just trying to sell me into the course and sell me
Yeah.
into it's like, no, I'm trying to give you my very best at every single level. So to your point of, uh, if you just want to pay for the book, pay for the course, pay for coaching, or have us do it concierge, there's something for you. I don't really care what you choose. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
give you the answers and help you.
Yeah. And I think that's the way I think about it too. I'm like, hey, like I have so many ways we can help your business. It could be ads, it could be coaching, it could be books, it could be just let me know what's best for you. Like I know everybody has a different budget, but like when I talk to people or I pitch them, I'd say, hey, look, like this is when it makes sense for you to work with me. This is when it doesn't. And if it doesn't, great. Like let maybe find another way. Buy my course, whatever you want to do. But yeah, at least for me too, when I'm pitching or talking to somebody, I'll tell them like, hey, before we even sign anything, let me come up with a custom plan, custom solution for you. Let's see if it makes sense. If it does, great, let's work together. If it doesn't, at least I knew that my team, we spent time thinking about their brand, thinking about the creatives we want to make for them, and we gave it our best shot. And then the day, that's all we can be proud of. It's like, hey, we gave it our best shot. They want to work with us, fine. They steal our ideas, all right, whatever. Like it's at least for me, like I know I did what I could do, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's what I've always told my clients too. Like especially when we do the book, the videos. Oh, if I put this out there, someone could steal it. Well,
Yeah.
if you don't tell your audience, they're never going to know, and they're going to go for the person who is doing it because they're the one who's, they're just perceived as, oh, this person's, we get in our minds of, well, if I say this, if I do this, that, but to the audience, to the prospects, it's this person seems like they're trying to help, this one doesn't. That's
Yeah.
the first step.
Yeah. Yeah.
You at least have to qualify over here and go, do I like them? Do I, trust them? Are they putting good stuff out? Are they a good fit for me? So it's no doubt you're doing the right stuff. I mean, congrats on all your success. I do have one question before we thank our sponsor.
Yes.
It's the wheel of whatever. Yellow or black? That's not the question, though.
Yellow.
Oh, we're getting all yellows today. Fantastic. Or I mean this week, because I don't batch the episodes. Oh, the question. So what's the next business what's the next business you'd love to start that you haven't done yet?
It's a good question. So I was actually thinking about this weekend. I want to do a search engine tracker for SEO. Like I tell you, I love SEO. Like I
was
like
gonna
obviously
make a joke, but I'm like, is this creepy? If I'm like,
Yeah.
I know you were looking at. I was looking at your notes.
Yeah. I want to do like a search engine tracker. Like something like for me, I like SEO, I like paid. I want to do something in the search space because it's what I really like learning about and I still pay attention to it. And for me,
It's
like
not
search
going
engine
anywhere either.
not going anywhere. And the search engine tracker, at least for me, I think about it as a business model. Everybody needs to track their rankings. For me, it's like not a simple SaaS, but it's like one that people are paying money for it. 15, $20 a month to track X amount of keywords. And it's getting better. And, so I would love to do something like that. But again, I haven't yet because I've seen it. It's like, it's tough. Like anything, I've looked it up, like GitHub, like how do you do it? How do you search? How do you scrape Google without getting banned? Right. All that crazy terms. And so, but I would love to do maybe not that, but I would love to still do a SaaS, so another software company, because
Okay.
that's my background. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like it would help a lot of people and a lot of fun. I developed one myself 10 years ago. It's hard to believe. To build WordPress websites automatically in under 5 minutes.
Oh damn, what was it called?
The IWD Now Freedom Platform.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
And
I
it was just like we were doing websites when I first went full time in business,
yeah
and people are like, oh, they're going away. Social media was on the rise, and it was even before that. Now that I think about it, but it was just like
yeah
everything is a website. You think Facebook's not a
everything.
website? Oh, it's social media.
Yeah,
You're stupid.
yeah.
Um,
It's a website. Yeah,
and the SEO component's the back end to it. So,
yeah. Everything. Yeah,
I
everything. Even like SEO for Facebook. People think about it. There was a recent article where Facebook did optimize for when you were searching for your own name. Like I say, search for Kevin Urrutia. Facebook would make a dummy page for you. That way you could say, "Hey, are you on Facebook yet?" and create an account. So even companies like Facebook and obviously companies like Facebook do think about SEO because it is a big source of traffic. Like Pinterest, for example, one of this guy named Casey, I think, worked there, and he's like a really top SEO guy, and he talks a lot about how Pinterest leverages traffic because if you search for like anything related to like anything, like you probably will see a Pinterest page related.
for
So
sure.
yeah. So it's a big source of traffic. And that's why I like it. It's like a lot of people don't really think about it, but like big companies, like there's a company I like called Zapier.
Mm-hmm.
They grow, they have a really, really good SEO thing. Again, HubSpot as well. So a lot of these big companies, it's part of your growth channel, like anything, right? Paid ads, Google, whatever. It's a part of your part of your
Yeah, I like
progression
that
as
you
a
said
company.
don't try and copy Nike, and I made the
Yeah.
joke about Walmart, but at the same time, it's like if these companies are spending tens of millions of
Hmm.
dollars to do something, don't copy them, but maybe
Yeah.
watching one video on SEO basics might be in your good interest
Yeah.
because it's not going anywhere. The premise has been the same since inception. However, the algorithms and focus, things
Yep.
get weighted differently. Things
Yeah. And
change
same
with it,
thing.
of course, but it's like riding the bike. It's like once you know that, it's easier to do everything else. And one of my favorite quotes is, the more you know, the easier it is to learn. It's like,
Yeah.
well, how does this relate to me right now? I don't know, but if I learn this year, this year, this year, the rest
Yeah.
comes easier.
Exactly. And going back to what I said before with Facebook ads too, like you learn SEO and then you do Facebook ads, you're like, oh yeah, like I should use relevant copy to what people are searching for because then it'll resonate with them. And that's exactly what SEO is. It's like eventually, like kind of you said, like Facebook might go away, platforms might go away. For example, TikTok, who knew TikTok was coming in like 5 years ago? But there's still an advertising platform. And what is it? It's just text and videos. And you know how to do that already. So you can go and
What was
advertise there.
crazy with TikTok
Yeah.
is I didn't realize it was Musically
Oh yeah, it was Musically. Yeah. 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 Got
until I
acquired.
made the account and it was like, you have videos on here. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And it was
You're like,
like you said, 3-4 years prior. I was like,
yeah.
more acquisitions. Then I had to research it and figure out who the holding company was.
Yeah, some company in China to have all your data. So
Yep. And that's why Facebook's going after them now too.
yeah, and like again, Facebook sees. I think Facebook sees TikTok as a huge, huge competitor, which makes sense. The
My
whole ad
favorite is
business.
the
Yeah,
people who download the TikTok video and put it on Instagram stories with the TikTok branding. It's like
yeah,
good for you for repurposing it, but
yeah. But also good for TikTok to know that people are going to do that and automatically impose the branding and the
yeah.
username. Yeah, so like it's a growth hack. I think it's like very. I'm like, oh, so these guys there are really smart. They know what they're doing because they probably knew, hey, Facebook is probably going to copy us because they probably saw Facebook copying everybody. So in order for us to sort of, we know we're going to get copied, right? That should be the mentality. If we're going to copy and we know users want to share their videos, then go maybe help there. But again, TikTok is
Or
just
put them on YouTube.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
thanks.
yeah. YouTube, yeah. YouTube's another
Well,
big one.
excellent. Well, we're going to thank our sponsor and come back for the imperfect action round. You're already the expert, but have you transformed your expertise into a tangible asset that will generate and qualify leads while increasing profit for you 24/7? And if so, how well are you promoting it? With the Expert Authority Effect publishing method, it's easier and faster than ever. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit generating business book in 8 weeks. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com to get started now. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. And we're back with the imperfect action round. Kevin, are you ready to take imperfect action?
Yes.
I got 3 questions for you, 60-second or less answers. The first one is, what is the fastest path to the cash?
I would say do something like a service-based business where you provide a service to somebody for some time, right?
Okay. Number 2, what is the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way for them to fix it?
I think it's not knowing if the product they have is actually like something customers want. Going back to what I said before, is does your product have demand? That's sort of like for me. Whenever I make something, I make sure there's enough volume or search traffic for that product.
Excellent. Number 3, what is the best way to maximize customer lifetime value?
It's like you have to have subscription base. That's the easiest way. Just ask customers subscription base. Think about it. Like I only when I think about new products I want to make, I need to say like, can this product be used within 30 to 60 days? And if not, it might be too hard to advertise online because of the cost of acquisition.
Mm, I love that mentality. And for anyone that's not familiar with subscription, or I mentioned MRR earlier, it's monthly recurring revenue. Um, the whole point is it's a form of passive income that it's recurring, month to month, or like you're saying, 60 days. You don't want to jump into something that's got an 18-month acquisition cycle.
Yeah.
And well, you might want to, but you'd be in a very small percentage of the population, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like it makes sense if like you already have a business that like has cash flow, and then you can afford these longer CACs. Like before, I think it was the opposite, which like, hey, I want to make a product that lasts like 2 years. Now it's like I want to make a product that lasts for 60 days because I want more money, I want to sell more, and then let's make products that last longer because now I have the cash flow, I have the team, and you can afford this like long periods of time. So I feel like it's switching now.
Yeah, a lot of people joke around with like what is it? Soaps, laundry detergent, household goods, and stuff like that. But I've heard even the sharks in Shark Tank, they're looking for stuff that is the exact same thing, because how often do you buy a big screen or a diamond ring or something
Yeah.
fancy like a yacht? You're not
Yeah.
buying them every month. It's a one-time purchase, and it's years later.
Years.
Concrete. If you do a bad, the only way to make it recurring is doing a bad job, but then you're going to go out of business. But if you do a good job, concrete's good for 25 to 30 years.
Yeah. It's it's a very different mentality now, I think, where before people wanted to make these products that last 2-3 years, but they're realizing that like, well, like its cost is going up. I can't sell another one. Or you have to re-innovate every time, make new products. It's just a very different type of company. Some companies are great like that. Look at a company like Apple. Like even Apple is yearly products. Yeah. So it's yeah. Yeah, they've been pushing yearly because they know they want that cash. So yeah, think about it like that. Like even a company like Apple that makes the best phone, they want to sell you a new one every single year. So
But don't forget,
yeah,
it's not the only thing in the lineup.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
noticed Samsung doing it with, we got the new flagship whatever Galaxy, but then they have the Note line and it's 6 months.
yeah,
Like, hey, we don't care if you switch and switch back. We're going to have something new. But, Apple's got the computers, the tablets. Is it an insult if I say tablet and not iPad? Like,
iPad, yeah,
you
the
know what I mean?
iPad,
But
yeah. The
like the
watch now,
ecosystem.
yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah, the
watch,
Apple
like,
TV.
yeah, all that stuff now, like the movies. Yeah, it's like every company wants this recurringness. Almost every company is switching to recurring, and I think it's interesting because like a few years ago, like you're like, oh, would you pay for all this recurring stuff? You're like, no, I would never do that. Now it's like, oh yeah, it's obvious. Like, yeah, of course I'm paying for that, right? So it's very interesting to see the shift
Yeah.
and it's like at least people seeing it now too with like Netflix, Disney Plus. Like I have like everything now. I'm like paying for cable and all this stuff. I'm like I'm paying more money than what I'm supposed to save, right? So yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. What books would you recommend to Expert Authority World?
So for me, my favorite book is for marketing book. I would say it's .com Secrets by Russell
Mm,
Brunson. I love that book. It's like I think it's traffic agnostic. It doesn't matter if you're Facebook, Google, but it teaches you about marketing and how to think about selling and funnels. So, and I think that applies to any business, no matter what you do, service or product or anything in between.
excellent. Where would you like people to learn more?
Just voymedia.com. That's my company website. So go there or just email me at Kevin@voymedia. So some of the best spots to find me.
Excellent. Well, Kevin, it's been a pleasure. I thank you so
Perfect.
much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Expert Authority World, we have another great one here today. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, and God bless.